All right, welcome everybody to the newest edition of the J-Mac and the Stallion podcast. I'm the Stallion. We have J-Mac over here sitting to my right.
Yo, what's up, peeps?
Oh man, it's been quite a while, hasn't it, J-Mac?
Dude, it's been a while, man. School has been a drag, but hey, summer break's here, finally over. It's time to roll, man.
It's time to roll, and as you know, at J-Mac and the Stallion, we don't stop. We won't stop. We were just sidelined for a little bit, and that is our perfect segue into the NBA free agency, where we watch from the sidelines players making their moves, going to different teams, and we're going to talk about some of the biggest names that were on the move this offseason. So we're going to talk about KD, Kawhi, Klay Thompson, Russell Westbrook,
Big names.
Anthony Davis, even. Yeah, huge names. Chris Paul. There's a lot to talk about. I actually can't remember an NBA free agency period that was this insane. Like
Yeah,
where so many crazy things happened
it's been a
all
while.
at once. It's been quite some time. So
The NBA
let's.
has definitely been reshaped, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like the whole landscape of the NBA was like the Warriors. It's crazy to think about that. Just like 2-3 years ago, it was the super juggernaut Warriors versus LeBron's Cleveland Cavaliers, and that's just all gone.
Yeah,
Isn't it crazy? It's just
yeah.
like that, the snap of a finger. But let's move on. Let's start with Kevin Durant. His decision to leave the Golden State Warriors, join Kyrie Irving in Brooklyn with the Nets. Jason, what are your thoughts on that whole signing or those two guys teaming up in Brooklyn?
Um, you know, I think it's cool for Kevin to, have a team that wants him. I'm not saying the Warriors didn't want him, but it it kind of had a sense that like he was gonna leave, and so at least one of the New York teams offered him money. Throwing shots there at the Knicks there.
Like we will always do.
Yeah, dude, that organization is dumb. But for Kevin, I know he had that potential, career-altering injury. Hope he's able to recover. With him teaming up with Kyrie, I see the Nets as now a possible contender in the East. There's before it was just all these juggernaut teams in the West, in my opinion, and the East was kind of weak, at least in last year for sure, and then the year before. But I think it's not this next season, but like the following season after that. When Kevin Durant's at full strength, and hopefully Kyrie's at hopefully nothing happens to him, but they're going to be an exciting team to watch. And for the Warriors aspect, this offseason, I give them credit. The one thing I thought that in like the smartest move they made was getting Klay Thompson. He secured the bag, he got paid. And I think the Warriors coming into a dominance in the last like 5 years or so, it all started with Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson. Like, yeah, I know Kevin Durant was a great player, two-time Finals MVP, but it all started with the Splash Bros. And so it was a no-brainer in my opinion. If I was in management, is you got to secure Klay. I mean, he's young. I know he just tore his ACL, and hopefully he has a quick recovery. But I still feel like he has a lot left in the tank, and he has a lot. He's just about entered his prime. Like we're seeing his shooting percentage go up. We're seeing him being such a good focal point in this offense and just a weapon.
Yeah.
And so I think the Warriors made a great move in securing him for the long run.
Yeah, I think they did too. Klay Thompson's a no-brainer. Again, I go back to the thing where sometimes teams will overthink things. Like the biggest example I can think of is in the NFL, Pete Carroll throwing the ball on the 1 yard line instead of turning around and handing it to beast mode.
Dude, beast mode.
Yeah, no, I mean they overthought it in that situation, and I think the Warriors did a good job not doing that. I mean, just give Klay Thompson the money. You know what he is. You know what he means to the team, and you know what he's going to be upcoming in the next few years. So that was a smart move. Also, the Kevin Durant thing, the biggest thing is that the Warriors got D'Angelo Russell in return, and I thought that was a huge win. And I know we have differing opinions on that, how that's going to work out, but ultimately I think it's a win because they were able to get some assets back for the best player in the NBA. And, most of the time, especially in the NBA, when you lose a player of that caliber, it's just a tremendous decimating type of loss. But the Warriors were able to prepare and plan and grab a good player in return, all-star caliber player in the East. So, do you have any thoughts on the D'Angelo Russell thing?
I mean, I know he definitely fills a void because now Clay's injured. So, starting the season, they'll have like a dominant player who, shoots the ball pretty well. But I just think it's a weird move. And, the only reason I think it's weird is because, D'Angelo is just an interesting player. Like, I mean, I'm a Laker fan, and, I went through all the Swaggy P drama
Oh
with
my gosh.
Iggy Azalea and that Snapchat, and so, like, and I'm not saying he hasn't, like, grown from that, but, like, mainly I just feel like D'Angelo's style of play is just an interesting fit, or just I don't know. It's just going to be interesting to see him and how he fits within this offense. And I mean, once again, I know he's a great shooter. He's definitely improved his 3-point shooting last year, but it's just going to be interesting to watch. I mean, and I told you this before. I hate the Warriors. I'm not a fan, and I don't like watching their games. But unfortunately, like because of this kind of weird move, I'm intrigued to see how it fits, how it works out. And so, unfortunately, it seems like I'm probably going to be watching some Warrior game this year.
I mean, are you gonna hate the Warriors less now that KD is not there? They're not like such the juggernaut anymore. You get to see kind of Steph and Clay
Oh, I've seen enough of Stephen Clay.
and.
Like, I know what they bring. So, I like Clay Thompson. I'm just not a huge Steph Curry fan.
I mean, the haters gonna hate. That's all I got to say about that. But it'll be interesting. I think D'Angelo Russell's gonna work there, like you said. He's a good 3-point shooter. He's gonna be really good for the pick and roll, and he's a great passer too. So he's gonna be able to, I think, find open Steph, open Clay, and they're gonna have a lot more easy 3-point attempts, I think. But anyways, that's all. We spent a lot of time on talking about that. Now let's talk about the Nets end a little bit more. Kyrie Irving. What do you think of Kyrie Irving in his first year with the Nets? What do you think expectations should be, and how do you see that whole season playing out for that franchise?
Well, without Kevin Durant, it's tough to say how well they're going to contend. I mean, they definitely have some solid pieces around Kyrie, but it's going to be interesting. Um, I think this is a good move for Kyrie. I know he's moving closer to home. He grew up in New York, so he's accustomed to the life there. I think for the team, it's going to be interesting to see if Kyrie can become the leader that he wants to become. I mean, there was that whole fiasco when the reason why he left Cleveland, as well as why he left Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Can he actually be a leader? Can he lead a team? And so this is the time that honestly, I feel like we'll finally figure out. Is he going to actually be a leader on a team?
Mm-hmm.
I know he can score. He can definitely break ankles. He can, he's definitely prime time.
Yeah.
Must
And
watch
clutch.
TV. But I think there's more to becoming an NBA champion and NBA legend than just scoring. I think if you can be a solid leader, not only impact people off the court, but impact your teammates on the court.
Yeah.
That's one thing. I mean, I know it's kind of a little off topic, but that's one thing I like about LeBron, is that he really enhances the players around him. And so I think that's the biggest question mark, with Kyrie and what he wants to do.
Yeah. I think that's very fair criticism, or not criticism, but questions. Those are some very valid questions. And while you were speaking, talking about that, I think this is also a big opportunity for Kevin Durant to prove his leadership, because similar to Kyrie, he wasn't the leader in Oklahoma City, and Kyrie wasn't in Cleveland. They almost took a backseat role with LeBron and Russell Westbrook, respectively. Then he goes to the Warriors, and people still question his leadership and his mental fortitude. But now it's both of those guys. They're going to have to put up or shut up. This is everything's on them. We'll see if they're up to the challenge. But I don't see the Nets really doing too much this year. They'll be really fun to watch with KD and Kyrie, two like some of the best ISO scorers we have ever seen, and some of just the most spectacular players I think we've ever seen. So good on the Nets, especially for their attendance. I know they ranked last, so just having those two guys there, they're going to have a lot more attendance to their game. So I think it's a big win for Brooklyn in any regard just because of that. But moving on, we'll talk about we're going to go to LA, and we're going to start with your hometown Lakers. Well, not your hometown, but your favorite team, the Lakers, and Anthony Davis. So Yeah, I'm just gonna leave the floor to you on this one. I mean, you have a lot more thoughts than I do about Anthony Davis in the purple and gold. So
I mean, purple and gold indeed, and I think spiritually, I was born in LA, like, let alone like in the Staples Center, like right above the jumbotron. Like, that's where spiritually I was born.
I mean, you're bald just like Kobe. I mean,
Amen.
it's perfect.
I know. I like the move. I think Anthony Davis is one of those kind of players that you have to get, especially with how the Lakers have turned out in recent years. They've been awful. I mean, it's been hard to be a Laker fan, to be honest with you. Obviously, getting LeBron last year, there's definitely a lot of excitement, and at one point, I thought we were going to make the playoffs. Going, I think it was into the All-Star break or right after we were at least second in the West. But I think Anthony Davis is a great addition to the team. They gave up a lot, but then again, that team that they had, all those young players, weren't really producing the kind of quality basketball that the management thought they were going to produce. Specifically Brandon Ingram. Everyone thought he was going to be this kind of like potential next KD type player, and I think Brandon Ingram is an excellent player who has improved tremendously, but I don't think he's panned out to the kind of player that everyone kind of hyped him up to be. There's all the criticism with Lonzo Ball and all the drama there, and I think he's going to be a decent guard, but I don't think he's ever going to be an all-star.
No.
So
I doubt it.
I think with, the options that they have, or they had, I think, with all the players that they traded, I mean, I think it was worth it. Yeah. And now having LeBron and Anthony Davis, I think they've now increased their winning percentage by like 20%.
Yeah.
Now, I know they've had to fill out the roster, which they've done in free agency. I mean, they waited forever on Kawhi, and we'll talk about that later. But I think just the move of adding a big man like him, he's very versatile. He's, I believe, 6'10", 6'11", almost 7 foot.
Yeah, he's huge.
He can stretch the floor.
And he's got long arms.
Long arms, shoot the three. I mean, he can post up. He has those jibby-jabby jump shots. I mean, like, he can just score from all around the floor. Defensive presence, can get tons of blocks. So I think he helps his team not only offensively but defensively as well.
I love the move. As we have talked to previously on the podcast, I'm a huge believer of Anthony Davis. I always have been. It's almost kind of like interesting to me that kind of the time you saw Steph Curry on his rise, I thought that was going to be Anthony Davis. And, seeing him with LeBron, I think he's going to be the next LeBron-like player. People say Giannis. People are saying, KD. No, I think it's going to be Anthony Davis. And I think LeBron's going to be the D-Wade to the LeBron James, Anthony Davis in this scenario. So I think giving up what you did, it was a lot of young talent. It was a lot of development that you gave up. But as you said, it wasn't working out necessarily. And to add a guy like Anthony Davis, who's going to be a cornerstone of your franchise for the next 8 to 10 years, I think that's 100% worth it. And I'm looking at the Lakers for a lot of title contention for years to come. I know you like to hear that, but I think we're going to really see how good Anthony Davis is. Because when you look at like AD, no one watched New Orleans games. I think he's almost like underrated in the NBA.
I don't know, man. I watched some Pelicans games.
I know, but like not a lot of people
just
do.
Just because of Boogie, man. He was on my fantasy team.
Oh my god,
bro, he was freaking lined it up.
Yeah, he was, and then he got hurt.
Tore his Achilles.
Rest in peace.
I should have brought it up. Sorry.
But most NBA fans, unless you're a Pelicans fan or you're a super diehard AD fan, you're not watching the Pelicans. You're watching the Lakers with LeBron. You're watching the Warriors. You're watching just some of these other teams, even like, OKC with Westbrook. That's probably what you're turning on. But, we're going to see how – I think people are going to open their eyes to really see how good Anthony Davis actually is. So, huge winners in my mind are the LA Lakers and also the LA Clippers.
Oh, jeez.
Your crosstown rival.
Kawhi Mia River.
Kawhi Mia River. Kawhi, did he go there? They went Paul in.
Oh, gosh. I'm being such a Kawhi baby right now.
Yeah. But, at the risk of sounding too cheesy or corny with all these puns, they landed Kawhi Leonard and Paul George.
Dude, I'll tell you what, though. them letting Paul George, I did not see, and I don't think anyone saw
No,
that
nobody
coming.
saw it.
They kept that so like under wrap, and I was like, when I saw that, because I saw that Kawhi, signed, and I was like, frick, I was like, dang. But then all of a sudden, like, I kid you, it was like 5 minutes later, it was like a Woj bomb. It was like, and they got Paul George, and I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, no, it shocked. And then I saw the price tag for that,
Yeah.
like 5 first-round picks.
Oh, bro, it was a freaking.
And I'm not sure
Oh,
if
it
they
was a
all
ton.
went to the Thunder. I'm not.
Yeah.
100%. Was
No.
it a 3-team?
No.
Or just a wow. That's insane. So
Yeah, dude, it was a ton.
yeah, Kawhi and Paul George, they're together in LA. Huge winners. What do you think about that move? What do you think about the Clippers now?
Clippers are definitely a contender, for sure. They have a solid core. I like Patrick Beverly. I think he's a great point guard, and he's also a huge defensive player.
Mhm.
So, I think him, setting the edge as well as Kawhi being a great defender as well. It's going to be tough to score on on this team.
Paul
in my
George as
opinion.
well as no slouch.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. When I see this past season, I saw so many scores, like final scores in like upper 100s, like 120s, 130s, 140s, almost on a consistent basis, in my opinion. I feel like with this team, you're going to see 90s, low 100s. I think you're going to see a lot of stops. You're going to see a lot of defensive, good basketball. So I definitely think it's a win for the Clippers. You brought up the price tag. I think OKC is also a winner in this as
Huge winner. Massive.
massive winners because I mean they've kind of like always been relevant, but like they've never been able to like really progress, get better. Like they've, in my opinion, they kind of always stayed like the same.
I mean, it's hard to go up from KD, James Harden, Russell Westbrook. But
Yeah, I mean, like over the years, they've drafted those teams, or sorry, excuse me, those players. KD they drafted. Russell Westbrook they drafted as well as James Harden. But I think with all of these picks and the GM that they have, I think they're basically accepted the fact that they need to rebuild. And this is the time. That and the opportunity that came up that they couldn't pass up. And so I think with all the draft picks that they have, with their G League team and their development team, that they're going to rely solely on the up and coming talents coming in the NBA, and hopefully they'll be able to make those same kind of selections and kind of find the diamonds in the rough, kind of, if you feel.
Yeah,
I'm trying to say.
No, well, so I've noticed with the Thunder, they haven't really drafted great at the back end of the first round, but during those early years when they drafted high, they hit. And they hit big, KD, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden. So, man, honestly, if we want to talk about the biggest winners, I'm thinking the Thunder. I mean, like, legitimately, like, we could see something like the Warriors where they draft, like, Steph and Clay times, like, 7. Because, like, that's how many picks they have. It's literally insane. But, we'll get more into that a little bit later. Going back to the Clippers, definitely contenders. Kawhi Leonard now has a running mate. And this is really interesting to me because Kawhi Leonard took like 20 games off last year, called it load management. I think this gives him the opportunity to do that more with Paul George. I mean, I don't think Paul George is going to be winning you every game, but if Kawhi decides to sit out a game here or there, they're not going to be just a bunch of rotational players essentially trying to win them games. So I think they're going to maintain a top seed in the West. And honestly, like I said in one of our previous podcasts, I think we could see a Battle of LA in the Western Conference Finals. Like this is what I'm predicting, honestly, for this year. Now, in the future, maybe my Warriors are going to sneak in there once again, once they kind of get all that going again. But
well, can I ask
huge win.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
So it's actually a Kawhi question. Let's look at Kawhi's resume real quick. Kawhi won a championship as the guy in San Antonio.
Okay.
I mean, obviously they had Tim Duncan there, who was kind of aging, but Kawhi was the guy.
I disagree.
Ooh.
A little bit.
Okay, just hear me out, though.
Okay.
Then he wins a championship in Toronto, where he was the guy.
Definitely, I'll give you that one.
If he wins another championship on a different team, so let's say a third team, where he's, I mean, you could argue he is the guy, I mean, Paul George, I'm not going to say anything against Paul George.
But it's the Jordan Pippen relationship, I think.
when it's all said and done, I think you could argue, based off of his resume, that he's probably one of the best players we've all probably ever going to see in the NBA.
I kind of agree with you. So I don't agree with the San Antonio thing. I still think they kind of had the big three holding that thing together.
Oh, I disagree.
Kawhi was really
Tony
good.
was old, and Manu Obi-Wan Ginobili.
No, Ginobili
was old too.
Yeah. I think it wasn't built around Kawhi at that point. I mean, they even brought in LaMarcus Aldridge after that to be the guy, and then Kawhi kind of turned into what he was gonna be. I think that's kind of the progression there. But he did win there. I can't take that away from him. I think Kawhi's gonna have to win another 2 or 3 for me to be kind of in the GOAT conversation. Yeah,
you think so?
I think so. Especially in LA. I think that'll help elevate him. Especially the Clippers too. Like you win one, you've won with 3 different teams, but you can point to, oh, it was Greg Popovich in San Antonio. Yeah, I'll give you credit in Toronto and give you credit in, LA. But I mean, we've seen I don't think it's as much gravitas as LeBron doing it. Does that make sense? In my mind, it just doesn't feel like that much. I think it's going to take Kawhi winning 2 or 3 more in LA for it to really be solidified.
I mean, no other player has ever, other than Robert Horry, who has been
the shooter
who has won with so many different teams. No one has ever dominantly been the go-to guy on 3 different teams and won 3 different championships on 3 different teams.
Yeah, it's quite an accomplishment, but I think GOAT really takes more than 3 rings. Maybe that's kind of the biggest thing for me. I think it takes more than that because, LeBron, I guess he does have 3 rings and he has been argued the GOAT, but that's extenuating. I mean, he's been in 9 finals, as many finals as Tom Brady. He's been in Super Bowls, which is insane. Jordan won 6. Kobe, I know I'm not necessarily hearing a ton of people argue for him for GOAT, but he has been thrown in there 5 rings, Magic, 3, 4 rings, thereabout. Bird at the time, But I just think the number of rings have to be there. Or something crazy has to happen, where LeBron's going to lead the NBA in pretty much every stat by the time he retires. Combined with the fact that he's been to 9 finals and was just this dominant player for so long. I think that's kind of his argument, but I don't know. Kawhi could get there, but I think it's a little bit premature to say 1 more, and then he's in the GOAT conversation. At least that's for me. I mean, a lot of people are probably going to disagree with me, but
interesting.
That's just how I feel. That's how I feel about it, especially in the NBA. It's rings, rings, rings to be the GOAT, at least to me. So, anyways, we're going to move on a little bit more to some more craziness that happened with the Houston Rockets. First of all, trading Chris Paul, and then receiving Russell Westbrook. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's going to be an interesting transition for Russell Westbrook. I think, first and foremost, James Harden is still the number 1 option.
Absolutely.
And I think Russell Westbrook is going to have fun being the second option. I think what we're going to see is a lot of lobs to Russell Westbrook, who Russell Westbrook is one of my favorite dunkers. Every time he dunks in a game, he looks freaking angry. He just freaking
and it's just explosive every time.
Oh yeah, and it's the dream. If I had anyone's athletic ability,
it would be.
He's besides LeBron and his what he brings to the table, dude. Freaking Russell Westbrook is so electrifying.
I mean, Russell Westbrook pound for pound might be more athletic than LeBron. It's just LeBron's taller and stronger and
built,
chiseled. Built. And but so, just the nuclear athleticism.
So yeah, and I think what we're gonna see a lot of a slashing, cutting Russell Westbrook, and we're gonna see him just thunder dunks, and we're gonna see him crazy.
Dunks.
It's just gonna be freaking fun to watch.
Houston's gonna have a lot of liftoff. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, it's gonna be freaking fun. What I also plan on seeing is, I think with James Harden, needing to take a break, you're going to see someone who can step up and be the go-to guy again.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see the same kind of Russell Westbrook that we saw in OKC when James Harden is not on the court.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be kind of a transition for Houston, who their offense has, been kind of the ISO style and just kind of play off of that. But I think we're going to see a faster paced offense, and we're going to see a lot more dunks. It's going to be freaking fun.
See, I think the insane thing to think about is How long is it going to take for us to see like Russell Westbrook with his like triple double and James Harden with like 45 points in the same game? You know, like that's going to be insane. And it's like almost it's kind of weird because it's going to be like a callback to like basketball 10 years ago where you had like the two guard was a very slashing position. It's almost like turning back the clock. We're going to see how that works. We're going to see how Mike D'Antoni adjusts. This is all on James Harden to make it work, or a lot of it, I think, because him and Chris Paul were able to make it work, but then James Harden kind of reverted back to what he liked to do. I'm really interested to see if he's willing to change that for Russell Westbrook, a guy that he's played with before and I think respects a lot more. So, and they wanted to play together. I know that Chris Paul and James Harden did, but I feel like Russell Westbrook and James Harden are more of friends, if that makes sense. Houston's gonna be really interesting. Yes, they got better. I don't know if it's enough for them to like push it over the top and win a championship, especially with like LeBron and AD, you know, that kind of a duo, or even Kawhi and Paul George. But they're gonna be fun to watch. That's kind of my thing with them.
Well, let me ask you this: what does Russell Westbrook bring to the table that Chris Paul doesn't? And on the flip side, what did Chris Paul bring that Russell can't bring? Like, how do you see this as a win for Houston?
A win and a loss for Houston. Okay, so win for Houston. They're gonna have the two most dominant ball handlers the league's ever seen in the same backcourt. So they're gonna be a nightmare to guard. I mean, just imagine you can't double team both of them. And you know, if James gets double teamed, he's smart enough to kick it out. Russ gets double teamed again. I think he's gonna force some shots, but James Harden's going to have a one-on-one. I think that's what they're going to do is they're going to be able to match up better against pretty much every team. And if your team doesn't have an athletic shot blocker, you're screwed. They're going to score so many points on you because James Harden's going to get to the rim, get his free throws. Russell Westbrook's going to get to the rim and jam it or, you know, get free throws. I know he wasn't good at shooting free throws last year, but it's going to be really hard to stop. I think they're going to be the biggest matchup nightmare in the NBA, if that makes sense. I think that's what they gain. What they lose, I think, is just I think almost playing basketball like the right way in my mind in Chris Paul, because when James Harden was off the floor and Chris Paul was on, he was definitely a guy who tried to get all the other guys involved, and I think, you know, with Westbrook and Harden, they're going to be playing a lot more off each other. I almost think of them as like LeBron, Kyrie, where it's like your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn. Oh, here, Kevin Love. Every once in a while, you know, Chris Paul helps guys get in rhythm and helps the whole kind of team play its best. I think they're going to lose that aspect with the addition of Russell Westbrook and subtraction of Chris Paul. So
just assists and like getting people involved.
Well, getting people involved. I mean, like getting them in a rhythm early so they're better late instead of, you know, here, Kevin Love, here's a hand grenade with like 3 seconds left on the shot clock, you know, and then him have to shoot threes. You know, not really being in a rhythm. I think Chris Paul is really good at that, and I think Houston's going to struggle with that this year.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
No, I think it's a great point.
Okay. Perfect. So, do you still think they're going to win their 50 games, or do you think it's going to be a little bit of a struggle for them?
I think they're going to win 50.
Okay, I think so too. I think they're going to struggle a little bit early on, but they're going to go on some insane runs where they win a lot of games. But I ultimately don't see them winning an NBA championship out of this. So, short term, I think it'll work. Long term, we'll see what happens, see how they adjust their games. But anyways, let's move on to the next topic. We're going to talk about the winners of the... Actually, a couple more things. Kemba Walker to the Boston Celtics. You like that move?
I do. I think it definitely fills a void. I think he actually can be the leader that they need. That they thought Kyrie could bring. I think he's definitely a good scorer. I think it's a good fit for him. I think Kemba is a loyal kind of player. I know it probably hurt for him to leave Charlotte. He loved Charlotte. He was very active in the community there. He's a great player, on and off the court. And I think Boston is going to be a place that he will feel accepted, feel wanted. And I think he's going to thrive there, honestly. I think with the young talent that they have, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, some of the younger picks that they've drafted in the last couple of years, they just have friggin' Taco Fall they just signed, So,
another taco.
Another taco. It's not Tuesday either. It's going to be fun to watch. So I like the move. I think it's good for Kemba. He's also getting paid too, so I think that's good too for him. I think it's a great fit.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's a really good fit too. I'm not going to go too much into depth of it, but he is going to be that leader, and he's going to have a lot of similar production to Kyrie in Boston. So I think that was a good move. Jimmy Butler to Miami, did not see it coming. I don't think it really changes much now. Ultimately, there were some Russell Westbrook rumors that could have been interesting, but I mean they're going to win some games, maybe make the playoffs, but I don't see him being much better than the Bulls with Jimmy Butler a few years ago. So I'm just going to move on with that one. Ben Simmons getting the max. Do you think that was a good move?
No, I don't really think so. I don't think he's proven to be that kind of player to get that kind of money.
No, yeah, I agree with you. And all he has to do to prove it is develop a jump shot and show that he wants to be that guy, for me at least. So I don't think he deserved it. I think Philly kind of crippled themselves there.
Oh, yeah.
And then, Chris Paul and OKC. Interesting. They're going to start the season, I hear, with him, but I mean, they're going to look to move him. Obviously.
I think if they don't get it done soon, at least by the All-Star break, for sure, we'll see some sort of trade.
Because I don't think they'll ever openly say they're tanking, but they're clearly tanking. You know what I mean? So, Chris Paul will win you some games. So those are some of the bigger moves in the NBA free agency. It was a really crazy free agency. So. Biggest winner and loser. Last point on that. And then West and East championships. What do you think?
My prediction for next year is obviously the LA Lakers going to the finals and winning the West.
Okay.
East, I'm actually going to go with a different team than I normally would pick. I'm going to choose the Sixers.
Wow, that's really interesting. You think, even though we were ragging on Ben Simmons a little bit?
I do, but I think also with the addition of Al Horford, even though in previous podcasts I kind of didn't like it, I've kind of let it settle for a little bit, and I think they have, at least in the East, a lot of weapons. They have definitely a deep team. I think re-signing Tobias Harris was a great pick for them, or a great thing for them to do in free agency. Sucks that they lost my favorite player, JJ Redick. Rest in peace.
And where did he go again? Remind me.
He went to Duke South.
Oh, what?
To the Pelicans.
Oh, okay. That's what you mean. I was like,
yeah, dude.
What are you talking
Duke
about?
South, man.
That's right.
But yeah, that's all I have to say. They're my pick, and Lakers obviously are going to win the championship.
Okay. Very interesting.
Sorry, Kawhi. Chose the wrong LA team.
I'm doing Lakers. Lakers are going to win the finals against the Milwaukee Bucks. I agree with you. And it's probably going to be 6 games. Maybe even less.
No, dude, it's going to be 4.
It's going to be 5.
It's definitely going to be 4.
I'm going to take the average out of this. 6 and 4 and go 5.
Yeah, it's going to happen 3.
Shut up. You and your Lakers.
There's going to be some violation.
But don't sleep on my Warriors. They could definitely go on a run late if Klay Thompson comes back and D'Angelo Russell works out. So they'll be an interesting team. But biggest winners and losers. Biggest winners of the NBA free agency. I got to go the Clippers. You got Kawhi, reigning finals MVP, and a great player like Paul George. Yeah, they're the biggest winners. Biggest losers, New York Knicks.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, I mean, low-hanging fruit on this one. I know, shocker, but, missing out on KD, missing out on Zion, missing out on, Kyrie, and then signing Julius Randle. I mean, Zion without hops. So they basically got Zion without hops, and missing him out in the draft. So maybe that's what they were going for. Poor Knicks fans. Rest in peace,
dude,
man. Seriously.
Before we transition to the NFL, I just think it's funny. The Brooklyn Nets have accomplished everything that the New York Knicks have been trying to accomplish, it seems like, for the past 20 years.
Oh, for real.
They did that in one offseason.
Which is crazy. I mean, it wouldn't have happened with, the extenuating circumstances. KD, I need to go because people don't think I'm the guy. And Kyrie and LeBron. It's kind of weird how it all came full circle. But
Brooklyn's now the place.
Brooklyn
is now New York's team.
It's kind of interesting because it's the smaller team is overtaking the bigger team traditionally, and you'll see that occasionally with NBA. Clippers were kind of pushing the Lakers for a little bit. Now with LeBron and AD, I don't think so. That kind of thing. Brooklyn is definitely overtaking the Knicks. We're gonna see a lot more Nets fans, in 10, 15 years.
Yep.
Little kids walking around, but. That is really interesting. Poor Knicks again. We're gonna rag on them, but Knicks fans, I'm sorry, man. Like, I understand your pain, but I'm sorry. But anyways, let's move on to the NFL. One of my favorite things to talk about. Football is back. Training camps have started last week. And man, I can smell that turf. I can smell that grass, and I can hear like the sleds getting hit. I can hear John Gruden yelling at someone for not picking up a block right, and we are there. It's a 7th month wait from the Super Bowl to the NFL season just about, and we are almost there. I am super excited, but we're gonna start with a little bit of housekeeping almost um, with Tyreek Hill in the NFL. We're gonna talk about him and how he was not suspended by the NFL and what we think about that. So, Jason, I want to hear your initial thoughts on that, and then we're going to go a little bit deeper in that topic.
I mean, just looking into it, it's very interesting. There's a lot of evidence, that kind of points that he did do it.
Mm-hmm.
But the NFL decided not to punish him. And I find that absurd. Excuse me. Reason is because, I know I've brought this up many times
Oh,
before.
my goodness.
I'm a huge Cowboy fan, but, Ezekiel Elliott, there was no evidence to really convict him, and he even in a legal courtroom was actually found not guilty.
Yeah.
And he still got punished by the NFL. And so I feel like the NFL is very wishy-washy and very selective on how they enforce, just their overall enforcement punishments.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they are kind of like they need to do something to change. They need to change how they look at cases and at least dish out punishment, in my opinion, because when it comes to the evidence to convict, they're just kind of all over the place, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the biggest thing we can learn from this is that the NFL has a very arbitrary system of punishment, like you were saying. It's not like, oh, you did this, or these are the qualifiers for a punishment. No, it's a very case-by-case basis and a lot of judgment calls, I think. And I think the NFL is kind of trying to rectify that Ezekiel Elliott situation because it received a lot of backlash for this. But I think the problem the NFL runs into is they're trying to please two different groups at the same time. You're trying to appease the fans of the NFL who think, guys like Tyreek Hill should never play football, and then you're also trying to appease the players of the NFL. And it's no coincidence, I think, that Tyreek Hill being waived of any punishment comes the year before the collective bargaining agreement where the NFL and the players get together and discuss rules, salaries, and almost like league management, the way they do it. It's next year, and we could be looking at a lockout. So it's almost interesting to see that the NFL is very, we want to have this good image, but then turn around and, there was a lot of evidence that Tyreek Hill did commit it. Not saying he did, but there was a lot of evidence. More than enough than Zeke's case, similar thing, and really trying to appease both sides, the fans and the players and that. So I don't think you can play two sides of the fence. I think they're going to have to really, really figure themselves out and how they're going to want to approach this in the future. And I think this will be figured out more in the next collective bargaining agreement between the players and the NFL. So, yeah, it's very arbitrary. It's very weird, very wishy-washy. But the point is Tyreek Hill is in camp right now, and he's gearing up to play for this next NFL season. And so, anyways, we're going to move on with more of training camp. We're going to talk about just some exciting things that we like. Teams to watch, players to watch. Is there anything exciting for us coming into this NFL season? So maybe looking at storylines or just, like I said, players or teams. So, Jason, I'm going to start with you. What are some teams, players, storylines to potentially watch in NFL training camp? What are you really excited for this NFL season?
For one thing, the Washington Redskins have had a history of horrible quarterbacks.
Yes.
Kirk Cousins, I felt like, who was in the same draft as RG3, was a great pick for them, who turned to be a pretty good. I think he was good.
He's a good quarterback.
He was pretty good there in Washington, D.C., but I'm excited to see how Dwayne Haskins. I felt like that was probably the steal of the draft. And he's a good quarterback, has a good arm, and he can make runs when he needs to, but he is definitely a passer.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to see actually how he does. I know I'm a Cowboy fan, so I shouldn't be liking the Redskins, arch rivals,
Yeah.
But it's just interesting to see, with like that player, dropping his draft stock was so high, but then just dropped, just throughout the draft, pick by pick by pick. Other quarterbacks, were placed before him.
Daniel Jones.
Yeah, Daniel Jones of all people, and so I'm excited to see him with that kind of like chip on his shoulder, and just kind of prove the other 14 teams that passed up on him, to like he can show his stuff, show why they made a mistake.
Yeah. Very interesting storyline. I think a lot of Haskins. When I went back and I watched a lot of his tape, there were some concerns about his deep ball, but I saw like a lot of Tom Brady in Dwayne Haskins. I'm not saying he's going to be Tom Brady, but that's kind of who I was thinking about when I was watching him. So very interesting to see how he plays, if he even starts, which I presume he will win the starting job, but you never know with the Redskins. One storyline, one player I'm really excited to see is Kyler Murray, the number one pick in the draft, because as you know, in the NFL world, Kyler Murray has been a roller coaster for the past year. Is he going to play baseball? Is he going to play football? Is he going to do this? Is he going to do that? Is he going to run at the combine? What is he going to do? Oh, he's kind of short. How tall is he? It's literally like been topic after topic after topic after topic with Kyler Murray. And you know what? Is he going to be the number one pick? Well, he ended up being that, and now we get to see what he can do in the NFL. Now, I think Kyler Murray can be an absolute superstar, but he's got to put it together. This is prove it time now. All the speculation is done. All the cameras and interviews or all that the talk stuff is done. This is time for football. This is time for you to show why you were the number one pick in the draft and why we focused on you for the past year or so. So I think that's really interesting to see. Jason, what about a team? Since you went with a player the first time, how about a team that you're really interested to see as a whole, besides your Cowboys?
Some of Cowboys, dude. It's, in my opinion, the only other team with much excitement that's worth watching, and he's talking about is definitely the Cleveland Browns. I think with the addition of Odell Beckham, and then they also added Kareem Hunt. I know he's suspended for 8 games, but I think when he comes back, he definitely can bring a lot to that running game, especially the offense.
And out of the backfield too, as well.
Yeah, and I think their defense has gotten better. I'm just excited, dude. Like, I think Cleveland's like on the rise, and this is like something like I thought I would never see.
Yeah.
And so it's like all those crappy teams that you see growing up. The Browns were literally, how many years have they gone 0-16?
Once, but it was really bad.
They've done it twice.
No, they went 1-15 that one year.
I think they've done it twice. Anyways, 1-15.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
They suck, dude.
But it's not winless. You can't tip your hat to the Detroit Lions if you win one game. So,
it's just exciting to see it. See a change in the culture. And so it's just fun to watch.
Yeah.
And I think they're gonna be prime time with Odell, dude. Odell's such a good receiver. He's fast. He's flashy. He's on point with his touchdown celebrations. And so teaming him up with Jarvis Landry, you have tight end David Njoku.
Yeah, David Njoku.
Yeah, dude, they're freaking crazy good. I think Baker Mayfield is an up and coming quarterback. He had a great rookie season. Now let's see if he can learn from his mistakes. Can he make that step forward? I think is the biggest question for the Browns. Decision making, I think, is the biggest thing for Baker. But overall, I just think they have a lot of potential and a lot of reason to be excited.
Yeah.
But we just have to see if they can actually talk the talk and walk the walk.
That's fair. We're going to have to see. This almost goes back to the Kyler Murray thing. There has been a lot of speculation. We've been talking at the Browns ad nauseum. Put up or shut up time, in between the lines. We'll see what happens. But
what about you? Is there any teams that you're excited to watch?
There are a few teams that come
besides
to
the
mind.
Raiders.
Okay, there are no teams that come to mind. Really, I'm thinking of the Baltimore Ravens, as crazy as that sounds. I'm really excited. Arizona, but I already kind of went the Kyler Murray route. So I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills. I'm really excited to see what they can do because I'm really excited about Josh Allen. And if we want to talk about guys who can come take the league by storm like Patrick Mahomes did in their second year, it's Josh Allen. He's got I think he's more gifted than Patrick Mahomes in terms of arm strength, athleticism, all that kind of stuff. He's not refined of a passer, especially not yet. But he can come and change that this offseason. So the Buffalo Bills, if Josh Allen is the real deal, oh my goodness, we're going to see some insane football. I mean, this guy was literally a human built in a freaking laboratory with the genes of some of the best quarterbacks, almost like our battle of the Buckies. And that's kind of the way I see him, just athletically. So Buffalo Bills, I'm really excited about. I think they can surprise a lot of people and just be a really exciting team to watch. So what about you? One more, the last thing, we'll talk about some storylines, maybe some players that have moved, or maybe prove-it years for players or teams. What do you think? What is one of the most exciting storylines you are looking forward to in this NFL season?
I think that, to prove it, I think if what's his name, the guy who got traded to who replaced Kyler Murray?
Josh Rosen.
Yeah, I think if Josh Rosen doesn't win the starting job, because right now it's being reported that Ryan Fitzpatrick is the favorite.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know he's a veteran, but could you deem Josh Rosen as a bust if he doesn't win the starting quarterback job over Ryan Fitzpatrick? That's something I think is going to be interesting to watch. And was that trade good for Miami?
Mm-hmm.
To trade him away. So I'm going to be watching that to see that quarterback battle, see who wins the starting job and plays the majority of the minutes on Sundays.
Yeah.
Obviously, Ryan Fitzpatrick started a little bit for Tampa Bay last year, and it looked like he was kind of a lot better than Jameis. At least he was playing like that. Mm-hmm. But then, he kind of went back to his very old traditional ways of throwing interceptions and sucking. So, if he does, start for Miami, how long does it last? He has a history of, making bad decisions. And so let's see if Josh Rosen can step up.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see, what if Josh Rosen comes out and it's just a stud and Kyler Murray struggles? How bad is that going to make Arizona look? So that's another thing you have to keep in mind. But yeah, I know Fitzpatrick has a starting job. We'll see how that one plays out. But it's kind of interesting that you're trashing on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because that's the storyline I'm looking at. We have Bruce Arians coming out of the booth, the offensive guru, the guy responsible for turning the Cardinals around a handful of years ago. Introducing Carson Palmer, people thought he was done with Oakland. He wasn't good. Comes to the Cardinals and is a stud. Well, let's see if he can work his magic with Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston is supremely talented, could be one of the best quarterbacks in football if applied right. We'll see what Bruce Arians can do with him. If Jameis Winston comes out and is just an absolute stud, I mean, well, you know how crazy that would be for the NFL? A guy who's been in a lot of trouble and also who, remember Hard Knocks a few years ago, really hyped up, and then we were just all disappointed and let down. I almost feel like if he comes out and lights the league up on fire, the NFL is going to have its whole head turned upside down because you look at that NFC South division, they have a lot of good teams there, but we'll get to that later. So Jameis Winston's redemption arc, I guess, is the story that I'm looking forward to. So, yeah, those are some things that we're really excited about. More will come up as the season progresses. So we'll move on. We're going to now move on to our last segment of the podcast. We're going to talk about some divisions in football, where we're going to talk about one this week and just kind of how we see them playing out, a way too early, standing prediction, and just talk about some of the teams in the division. Well, all the teams in the division. But, Jason, this week we're going to be talking about the good old NFC South. We went from Tampa Bay, perfect segue into that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about each team, some expectations we might have, players to watch for, and then talk about our rankings. So, Jason, we'll start from the bottom up, okay?
Okay.
Just to make this a little bit more interesting. So, your number 4 team in the NFC South is...
Remind me all the teams, sorry.
No, you're good.
I don't usually follow that division.
Okay. So
I know historically if it was last year or a few years ago, they were the first division to have every team have a losing record, and then a team still made playoffs.
Yeah, I know. I think that was the NFC West.
No, it was that division.
Was it?
It was this division.
Because I remember the 7-9 Rams or something with Sam Bradford's rookie year making the playoffs.
That also happened, yeah.
That's insane. But yeah, so we have the New Orleans Saints, we have the Carolina Panthers, the Atlanta Falcons, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Okay, fourth place Tampa.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay, just elaborate on that a little
Well, obviously the big, quarterback situation last year. It seemed like they gave up on Jameis, but then they're like, "JK, we actually do trust you." So I just, let's see, with, and I think you said Bruce Arians is now the offensive coordinator,
bit. Head coach.
or excuse me, head coach. I think he can turn things around. You know, um, and I'm really bad with names. And they just drafted that linebacker,
That Devin White kid.
Devin White. I think at least in the past 5, maybe 10 years, it seemed like Gerald McCoy, when he got drafted, was like the face of that defense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, historically, they've had some great defensive players in Tampa. Warren Sapp was a great one. Rondé Barber was a great one.
Akeem Talib came out of there.
I mean, like, they've had some great defensive players, and so Gerald McCoy, obviously they had to move on from him. He's getting older, and just, not worth the money that, they feel like he's worth anymore. But I think, drafting, this guy, I think has a lot of shoes to, big shoes to fill, and I think I think he's basically going to be the start of being the face of this defense again, kind of rebuilding the impactful defense that they've had in the past.
Yeah, I think Tampa Bay, for me, is also going to finish fourth place. I know I just talked about them, what they could do, but that's all potential. That's all like what I think can happen. What ifs? That's the biggest thing. And if Jameis, can turn it around with Bruce Arians, then I could definitely see them winning the division. But I just don't see it happening. I think it's more to do with Jameis than anything else. Is he really going to put in that work? Is he going to be a leader? I know we talked about leadership a little bit earlier on the podcast and how crucial that is. I don't think he's a leader, or a good leader, that is. He's trying to eat those W's and take them crab legs. But
I was just about to say that, dude.
Not necessarily trying to work on his craft and win football games, because with Jameis, we see a lot of those same mistakes that he made as a rookie that we thought would get cleaned up. Yeah, I mean, even college, but college, okay, then he gets to the NFL, maybe you can polish it up with some pro stuff. His rookie year, you give him the benefit of the doubt, but it's been the same dumb mistakes, same bad plays every year, and it hasn't changed. So I have them finishing in fourth place. So, Jason, your third place team in the NFC South is?
Atlanta.
Wow, Atlanta. Okay, you want to explain that a little bit more?
I think Matt Ryan's getting older. I liked Matt Ryan coming out of Boston College. He was a stud. I mean, he freaking lit up the ACC. And I'm a huge Virginia Tech fan, so obviously I know ACC. So
rest in peace.
But I mean, he's getting older, and I think in the next 5 years or so, they need to start to look for a solid replacement for him. They have some great receivers. Julio Jones. Last year they drafted Calvin Ridley. And so I'm just they have a lot of talent there, but can they have an offense that can allow those players to produce? So I think that's the biggest question for them.
Okay. So I disagree with you. This might be a little bit shocking. The third place team for me is the New Orleans Saints. Biggest reason? Well, a couple big reasons. One, 2 heartbreaking NFC Championship losses in 1 year, or in consecutive years. That's really hard for a team to emotionally respond to. The Stephon Diggs and then the no call. That's a big thing. It emotionally is going to take a big toll on their team. Another reason is Michael Thomas hasn't reported to camp. I know, they'll probably get a deal done, but that's also a distraction for the team. Usually when stuff like that happens, the teams aren't necessarily building that chemistry. I mean, I know Drew Brees and Michael Thomas still have that, but those kinds of distractions really do, I think, affect teams later on in the season, or maybe even early on in the season. I think that's a big deal. I liken it to the Raiders and Khalil Mack last year. I think that was just a whole big distraction, and people were so worried about him that they couldn't really necessarily focus on anything else. And then the team was looking at Mack, and then the whole Cooper trade. I know, that thing went down. It's just a big distraction. So, and it'll reflect on the play. But the biggest thing, really, those are important. But I think the biggest thing is the play of Drew Brees. So, later in the year, Drew Brees almost lost gas in his arm. Early in the season, he was a stud. He was dotting up defenses, but later in the year, I mean, it almost looked like a night and day difference. He didn't have the arm strength. He wasn't making plays. The Saints were only scoring about 20 points a game, and they became a defensive team. They changed identities in the middle of the season, so I didn't think that was good for them. Yeah, watch out for the Saints this year. I think they're going to be a big letdown team. And again, you lose Mark Ingram. Is Alvin Kamara really going to be able to handle that workload and produce the same way? He's going to have to play more. Yeah, I think it's going to be really hard for them. So, Jason, what do you think?
No, I think the Saints are a good team, and they're actually my number two. I think, even though I know Drew Brees is getting old, I think they have some solid, backups that can eventually, replace him. Teddy Bridgewater, and I mean even Taysom Hill if they decide to go that route. I know Sean Payton really likes Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill is a very versatile player. Definitely brings a lot on special teams, and provides a lot of options, to kind of expand the playbook a little bit. There was a couple times I saw last year that Taysom was at the quarterback spot, and they put Drew Brees, out at wide, and they actually threw the ball. Not to Drew Brees, but like
Not too true.
like they think, oh, the defense thinks to run. He's a very versatile player. He's fast. But Teddy Bridgewater, and he's a great quarterback as well. I mean, coming out of Louisville, he was pretty good. Had that terrible injury in Minnesota.
That really derailed him.
But I think he's bounced back. I think he's definitely progressing. So if the Saints, eventually decide to either give up on Drew Brees or Drew Brees decides to just, give up the ghost and freaking retire and hang up the cleats, I think they still have players that can fit the system that Sean Payton wants.
Okay.
And, that's just, I mean, they have young receivers, and, Michael Thomas is a stud, so let's see.
Yeah, we'll see what can happen. All right, anyways, we're going to move into our second place slot. The number 2 team in the NFC South is, for you?
The Saints.
The Saints. Okay.
And that's what I just said is the reason why.
Okay, perfect. So, I mean, you still think they're going to be a good team. I think they're going to take a major step back. So, the number 2 team in the NFC South for me is the Carolina Panthers. I think Cam Newton has not been healthy as of late, especially with his shoulder injury. I think that's a question mark. I think he can bounce back. Christian McCaffrey is going to be a workhorse. DJ Moore is going to be a stud, but ultimately, I just don't see him beating out the first place team, in this division. I think they're going to be a very good team. They're always well coached. They're always going to have a good defense, but I mean, Cam Newton inconsistency, I think, is the biggest thing. When he's on, he's on. Like you saw, his MVP season was incredible, but he hasn't really been able to catch that, to find that, and Cam is more of an inconsistent quarterback than not. So I think that's just going to give the other team the slight edge, and it's pretty obvious your number 1 team is
Carolina, for
and
sure.
Why do you think they're going to win the division?
Well, I think they just have a lot of options. I think Christian McCaffrey has been a solid weapon for them, whether it's the running game or the passing game. He's a very versatile receiver and running back. And then also, I think with just their young, they've done a good job of rebuilding their wide receiver core. There's a lot of young talent that are explosive and very fast. And I think Cam is the kind of quarterback that likes to have fun. And I think these young receivers are going to have fun.
Yeah,
this
like
year.
Curtis Samuel, DJ Moore.
Yeah.
A lot of speed, explosiveness. Okay. I have the Atlanta Falcons, your third place team. Number 1, well, the biggest thing is Matt Ryan was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL last year, and no one cared because they weren't winning. So I think his was a big deal.